We are live. All right, all right. Welcome to episode 24 of the Over 30 Podcast. We are we are here with two amazing special guests. My co-host is not here due to a family emergency, but I'm gonna be the one doing this today. So I am your star, infinite omniscient. We have an amazing show today. We have two amazing guests. We have the amazing my cousin Christian of Housewife Hoodoo, and he's here to assist and also talk about some new amazing things that he got coming out. And then we have another amazing, oh man, this guy, he wears many hats. I am just getting to know him. He has done a lot in his lifetime. I spoke with him briefly. Um, but just to name a few, he's an author, he's a magician, he's a occultist, and he's a craftsman. Yes, yes, yes. I actually checked out a lot of his things. His name is Frater Ashton Chassen. And I would love, love, love to get to know more about him throughout the show. He actually has a special gift and he does a lot of amazing things with it by speaking to spirits, specifically angels. Yes, 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 you heard it correctly, angels. So we're going to dig into Freighter's psyche and we're going to get it going on this amazing podcast. So, how are you guys doing? How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. It's a good Thursday.
Yes, amazing.
Doing well. It was such a beautiful day today, so I have no complaints.
Yes,
Such a
yes.
beautiful day.
It actually was a beautiful day today for just a lot of things. It was like a smooth day for me. So we went, yeah, it was everything. The weather was beautiful. Everything went according to plans. So we're not going to let a little hiccup get to us.
Yeah.
So we're going to just follow through. So I have a couple of questions for Frater because you are very interesting, just to say the least. I have done my
Yeah.
research on you just briefly these last couple of days, and Christian told us about you. I said we have to have him on the show. We have to have him on the show. So Frater, can you explain to anyone that wants to know, like, exactly what do you do?
Well, I suppose in the magical occult world, what I'm most known for is replicating um, old or ancient experiments of spirit conjuration or ceremonial magic.
Hmm.
Some people see me as a traditionalist, but I do I do a lot of different kinds of magical things. But what I've written about and what I'm most known for is recreating the experiments within the grimoires. The grimoires, the ancient books of magical texts and spirit conjuration, and actually following them as close to the letter as I find them in the versions that I read from, and seeing if I can make them work, if I can get a spirit to appear, and if I can have interaction, if I can get any results from working with that spirit. So that's primarily what I do most often and what I'm known for in that kind of magical community.
Wow, that is powerful. That is very powerful. So, what brought you to this? Like, how did you get introduced to something like this? Was it a specific dream did you have? Were you already in contact with spirits and entities, or did something happen, like a life altering situation happen to make this come about?
Yeah, so I kind of have a an interesting background with my family in particular. Um, I've been seeing spirits and been having kind of paranormal encounters since like I was a toddler. But not only myself, my family, especially my dad in particular, but everyone. As I was growing up, we moved a couple different times, but no matter where we moved, if we stayed there long enough, we would get hunting type phenomenon, to the point where my father thought somebody was breaking in the house. He would see somebody, but he thought they were a real person, and things would move around, and he would be very confused. And and sometimes it was quite frightening. I have quite a few stories growing up, but it got to the point where we kind of grew up in a typical kind of Protestant Christian household, and the ministers and such would tell us to pray, but it was before we really had online or paranormal research teams to come out or anything like that. So we were kind of on our own because nothing seemed to help. So I began reading about magic and other things, and kind of an attempt to get it more control over what was going on in my early teenage years with these spirits and these happenings that would go on, that sometimes they were just random, but sometimes they were terrifying. Mm-hmm. And as I began reading and kind of experimenting a little bit, it seemed like I had a knack for it. I would kind of attempt something that these books would talk about, and I would be able to make things happen. I read a paragraph on hypnosis, and trying it out one time with my friend, I was able to hypnotize from then on, and I started hypnotizing people when I was 14. So I was just I guess anything kind of weird or unusual seemed to be my forte. So it kind of sparked my interest.
Absolutely. I can definitely relate to that. That is very, very powerful. Oh man, the background just alone just will send chills up someone's back. If I seen a ghost, I definitely, or a spirit or anything paranormal, I don't know how I would handle it. So that led you into becoming this amazing magician that you are. So how do you translate speaking to spirits into ceremonial magic?
Well, ceremonial magic's a very interesting, what Dr. Stephen Skinner would call like a technology, and there's certain methods that were used even in ancient Egypt and Greece to contact spirits and to have conversation and to have them do something for you, something practical, whether it be for wealth or love or information or so on and so forth. And these methods of spirit contact survived, even though they changed through different cultures, different religions like Judaism and Christianity. And it's a very structured form of consciously bringing a spirit to you and being able to converse and ask it and stay in place until you're able to question it and really get what you need from it. So it's more of a very serious and sometimes severe way to work with spirits, but it's a way that it's kind of in a controlled lab-like atmosphere where there's less likely a chance of something going wrong, or the spirit just leaving, or the spirit saying that it will do something but it does something else, or it doesn't do it at all, where you don't know if you're going to get what you want, or you can't quite tell if it's there or not. So I became very fascinated by ceremonial magic with the kind of structure that it has to call the spirit and to have it arrive and to be sure that it's there, and to be able to ask it questions and for it to reply, and to get information you didn't have before, and also to have things be caused by the spirit in a direct kind of observable manner. So for me, it was kind of the most tangible, the most real, the best way to actually see results of working with a spiritual entity, rather than say like a mystical way where you're kind of passive, and you might have an experience, you may not, something might come out of it, or it may not, and you kind of have to just allow it to go on as it would. But magic's very, very, very intentional about what it's trying to achieve, I guess, and that was of interest to me.
Oh wow, that is powerful. So Frater, just for anyone that's wanting to get into magic, or anyone that actually has the same kind of background as far as seeing spirit or having all kinds of paranormal experiments or experiences going on just from childhood or from their past, how do they take the steps into getting into this? As far as what does it look like to actually say, hey, I want to get into this and I want to take the necessary steps? Is it do they just jump right into it, or is this something that you have to do? Is this some type of rules and set of times a day, or clothes that you wear? I mean, what do they have to do to actually say this is something I want to do, and I have to actually follow some type of guideline?
Sure. So contacting spirits is a type of magic that's found in, I would say, most cultures around the world, and a lot of them have their own systems, and each are viable. The one that I speak about, the one that I do and I lecture about and that I've written about is kind of coined Solomonic magic. And Solomonic magic, King Solomon is basically the figure, historical figure, but more of a mythic figure. I mean, like Merlin and Saint Cyprian, and these type of figures, but someone who is represents kind of this divine authority. And Solomonic magic, the basis and kind of the methodology is based upon the Testament of Solomon, ancient manuscript, where he basically he finds a way to bind demons, or to call a demon out of a sick child, because one of the archangels gives him a seal or a ring, and it gives him basically divine authority to call out the demon and to find out its name, find out what it does, what magicians call their office, what star rules over them. So they're kind of a simulation or connection to various astrological, either planets or constellations, so on and so forth. And that was kind of the basis of being able to work with spirits this way, to be able to conjure them and through this divine representation to clearly have them respond about what they can do, how you can have them work for you or accomplish something. And in order to do that, the vast majority of Solomonic grimoires or magical manuscripts and texts demand someone that is very possibly devout, but very, very focused. Most of these are very religious, and the 13 to 15 up to the 1700 manuscripts are usually kind of centered somebody that's in the clergy already. They're often referred to as the exorcist. But
okay.
It would be somebody of either minor or major holy orders, a priest. There's a lot of history there. There's very few people could read in the historic world, and the few people who could were either the aristocratic, the ruling noble class, or the clergy, and they're pretty much the only ones that could read or had access to books that were a luxury. It was before the printing press, or right at the time of the printing press. So getting into the kind of person, they would have to be very very disciplined. Solomonic magical texts talk about very rigorous purifications, times of fasting, times of abstinence, and just working on these prayers, and this is a discipline that I've brought upon myself, and 9 days intense fasting and prayers, and basically removal from everything else that you do, and just focusing on the work. Most Solomonic texts require some magical implements that are fairly difficult to make or acquire. They're not easy by any stretch of the means, and it was sort of made to be that way, but it's part of the magical process of understanding how the system works. So yeah, there's a lot required. I think there's a lot of people that I think that are fascinated by this kind of magic, but I would say that it's probably appropriate for very few people, because it's very, very difficult and complex to practice in its historical context, and that's why a lot of what people can find are highly modified versions of what these manuscripts described originally. But I'm kind of the old school guy. I like to really spend all my time and money to go as closely as I can to see what happens and what I can learn from it, and to make sure I don't miss something by just assuming it's ancient or unimportant or outdated or something like that. So it's kind of a passion for mine, but I don't think it's for everybody. That's for sure.
Wow. Okay. So during a ceremonial evocation, do the spirits stay with you, or is there consequences if you're not doing it right, or is it something that will shield you or stop you if you're not necessarily ready? Like, how does that look if after you have initially passed that threshold of actually evoking the spirit and getting it to communicate with you?
Yeah, there's a lot of safeguards, and if somebody has the aptitude to actually call some of these spirits, and some of these spirits are very powerful, and they're potentially harmful. They can really cause havoc in a person's life. It's not quite like the movies or some fantasy novels make it and everything. A lot of times you're not going to be like possessed by them or going, but they can linger around if you manage to get their attention. But if some things are not done correctly, they can cause a lot of harm. And in studying these manuscripts and these ancient grimoires, the invocations, the calls to the spirit, read very much kind of like a legal document does even nowadays. That when we issue so many papers or we're doing like a legally binding thing, it covers very specific things. You will do this, but you're not going to harm anybody that's in my family or any animals or anything around. You need to do this for me as soon as possible, but without causing harm, and basically trying to cover any possible loopholes that the spirit might use or utilize just to accomplish that, but to make things difficult. Like a friend and magical colleague and other magicians always use his example because it's a classic example. He tried to call one of these spirits to give him a pretty good sum of money, and he wanted an exact sum. I can't remember what it was. It was like $150 something thousand or something around there. And he just kind of asked for it and sent it off. He did a very modified form, but he didn't include any of these rigors of the invocation. And what happened is that within days, his house burned down and was completely destroyed. But he got a check for the exact amount that he asked for in the insurance money.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful. Oh man, that actually wow. Wow. Um yeah. I'm at a yeah, that's powerful. So after something like that take place, do the spirit just dissipate after the deed is done, or after what is requested upon them is done? I mean, does it say, hey, I got more work with this person, or is it going to just dissipate after that? Or do you have to interject with the spirit and say, hey, this is done, your contract is up?
Yeah, see, so classically, how it's done, there's various levels to classical evocation, and purification and getting everything ready and the tools made and everything is kind of the first part. Then you have to know, or you should know, the spirit's proper timing, what day, what direction they're supposed to arrive in, the kind of incenses that are most agreeable to them. Quite a bit of information in preparatory work. If they have a sigil, if they have a symbol, their various names that they're known by. And at the beginning of their hour, you do these invocations, and you're calling to it. You're speaking aloud. You're hopefully speaking towards the correct direction at the correct time of day. You're using holy names, possibly spirits or kings that are above that spirit, as an hierarchical call to compel that spirit to appear. And basically, you're waiting for classical haunting type phenomenon to occur, lights going around, smoke, things being knocked around, or kind of bangs on walls and stuff that shouldn't be there. There's different things that can happen at different times, but they're pretty tell signs that the spirit has acknowledged you, that it's going to come and hopefully appear for you. They can appear in a number of ways. Perhaps the most incredible is when they do appear visibly right in front of you, but they can also appear in a mirror or a crystal or something, where you're kind of scrying them or seeing them, in these objects. But when they're there, you should know exactly that their presence there. And then there's basically the exorcism, the binding is that you will remain here by such and such authority and not leave until I give you the license to depart. And that's where, there's triangles and other things where you basically have the spirit swear an oath that it's not going to harm you. It's going to be working with you. It's going to answer your questions truthfully, so on and so forth.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. You can give them your oath and what you want them to do, and it's usually good to find out what they will do for you, how they will do it for you, and get some dialogue. But the license to depart is kind of the closing of that, and that's where you allow the spirit to leave and not harm yourself or harm anything out the way, and to return to wherever it's from, and not to linger around and try to haunt you when you're asleep or anything like that. It's bound not to bother you after that. And if it's done correctly, and if things go well, there should be a beginning of established connection with the spirit. And if the spirit is willing to work with you, like I don't threaten and curse the spirit or something. If it doesn't want to work with me, I don't force it. I'm kind of different that way, where I will try to find a spirit that is willing to work and kind of meet me halfway on things, rather than threaten it and do this and that. But I do make sure that it is bound to not cause harm and to not cause more pains in my life. And this is what the structure of ceremonial magic is for: the magic circle, the magic wand, the vestments that you wear, the invocations that you use, the lament. There's all of these components that if somebody doesn't know better, they're just going to think it's dress up, or that it's bravado, or it's just to look cool or to feel cool. But they actually do, each has an energetic and purposeful function for making this process work smoother and hopefully more successfully.
Oh wow, that is that sounds like a lot of work behind the scenes before you even
It
actually
is.
get in contact with it. You have to actually make sure that everything around you is really really prepared safely, and the contracts are in place, and you have everything in order. Which brings me to my next question: are there any type of health or any type of pull and tugs or residuals on your end after you have come in contact with spirits? I mean, do you have like some decrease in health, or does things happen in your life that lets you know there is a spirit around?
That's kind of multi-layered questions. I would say that if you're having trouble with energy or health decline, or you're having a lot of kind of negative recurrence, that's kind of a sign that something went wrong during your evocation attempts. Some energies did not function, and it's not always as simple as the spirits trying to attack you. Sometimes it can be other things working against you that were done incorrectly, and there's a lot of variables, I guess I could say, about what the repercussions of doing this kind of magic is. And thinking about those is important, because magic, true magic, is manipulative. You're forcefully pulling at some strands in the universe to make something happen that you want, that the universe may not have been going that way originally. So how you pull those cords and how you change things is going to matter. It's the truth about magic is that you don't get something from nothing. There's something is always changed, altered, or taken from somewhere else to get what you're trying to do. And
Oh,
we're not
okay.
saved just because we're ignorant of exactly what that looks like. And again, it's not always the spirit's fault, but that's what the process, the purification, getting through that higher authority,
Hmm.
the purpose for the magical circle, and some of these vestments, all those things, or to counterbalance that, to make sure that those things again don't work against you. But answering the next part, yes, that once you successfully come in contact with the spirit and bind it, or make a formal agreement, a formal working relationship on whatever level that we call that, you are connected to that spirit, even with the protection of everything. There's a now connection to that spirit, and that originally and still is the point. Most people get confused that says, well, this spirit says it can do this, so I'm going to call it up. It's going to do what I want, and I banish it, and I never see it again. That's usually not how this works. You're forming a connection, and you're becoming familiar with the office and what that spirit is about. And the more that you work with it, the stronger that magic becomes, the more efficient that spirit works with you, the greater the benefits, if you're working the correct way, manifest in your life and in the lives of other people. It's not a one and done type deal, but how that link is established, how it's maintained, and how it's worked with kind of considers the health and the well-being of the magician and those you're trying to serve and work for, if that's something that you're doing. And there is consequences for missing things or doing things haphazard or doing things the incorrect way. There is drawbacks for sure. And it can be difficult, and most magicians that have done this stuff for real, you're going to make mistakes. We've all made mistakes, but it's you just hopefully your successes outweigh your mistakes and your experimentation.
Oh, wow. So, and correct me if I missed it. I wanted to say, like, what are the alternatives if a spirit does not do what the contract says, abide by the contract? What are their alternatives?
So interesting. Well, if you call up a spirit and you bind it and you give it the orders to do something, and it doesn't come about, there's a few things that you can do. One is you call it back up again and say, why wasn't this completed? And hopefully you get a viable answer or something that makes sense, where you can keep the spirit to try again or to keep working at it. That's one method. Classically, such as in the Goetia or the Goetia of the Lemegeton, there is the curse of chains, or ways to compel or more forcibly bind that spirit to do what you want it to do. That is a method, and sometimes it really can get results. But again, within magic, the harder you try to push an intelligence, or you try to push something that, for whatever reason, is having trouble manifesting, you do build up the potential for kind of a reality slap back, or things to go occur that can make your life more difficult if you're not careful. So it is a bit of a gamble. And again, it's not necessarily the spirit taking revenge on you, though, that can happen. But it can be all the variables, like I said before, around it, of why that's not, the spirit's not able to manifest what you want. And, forcing it more and more might have some consequences. It's just kind of a cause and effect thing. The other possibility is, and quite likely, is that the magician himself is making an error and asking the question or putting it to the spirit in a very incorrect or inappropriate manner. So an example might be, they may call up a spirit that they read somewhere it helps with relationships, but they didn't know, or they didn't have access to the information, or they didn't question it well enough that the way that it deals with relationships is a certain way, that it only deals with men and women and making them fall in love to be married. Or it causes, some spirits, they're meant to cause two women to love each other, or two men. I mean, that's their office. It's still love and relationships, but it's specific. And if the magician is ignorant to that, and they're trying to force something that it doesn't do, and they don't realize that, that might be one of the reasons it's not working, and could be difficult. They have false ideas in their heads about what the spirit is capable of, or how it's going to look. And I find that's probably the most difficult, or the most common, I should say, difficulties that magicians run into.
Oh, wow. So When you speak of ceremonial magic and invoking the spirits, is there things that people do effortlessly without um, ceremonial magic that can evoke spirits?
Sure. Yeah. There's many different methods and ways that people have and do contact spirits all the time. There's some people that are very well disposed to see and to work with spirits, because they were born with it. Or some people that are kind of the medicine men in their culture and everything. They have a natural knack or even a different kind of system with working with spirits of their particular paradigm or their culture, their religion, their spiritual structure. There's definitely different methods. Yeah, the evocation is definitely just one among many. There's other spirit evokers that they do this in Asia, and they have a complete. It's a kind of a similar system, but it's different in many respects um, as well. So yeah, I mean, some people make and find spirits that it's very natural and kind of organic meeting and union and kind of a cooperative effort, and that does happen. But I would say in the realm of magic, that would be more mysticism, and I kind of use that as a dividing line because
Mm-hmm.
mysticism is inspiration. The spirit can be helpful, it can guide you, you can learn from it, but you don't really hear too much about the person saying, hey, I want this, I need you to go make it happen, and the spirit readily complies. It usually doesn't work that way. There's usually a lot of kind of give and take, and more on the human, the person's level. They're more guided and kind of passive in the relationship with the spirit to kind of trust them to lead where they need to go. So it's another example. It's just different and has kind of a different purpose than ceremonial magic.
Hmm. Okay. So how long have you been practicing magic?
Magic in general, I would say probably seriously since I was about 13 or 14 years
Right.
old, and haven't stopped since. So it's been a huge passion since that time. So that's,
Wow.
yeah, a
Wow.
little
Wow.
while.
Wow. That's a very long time actually. So I have a question about the spirit. Is there a time or place or point where the spirit can actually request things for you to do before it does things for you?
Some spirits can, and it's kind of up to the preference or what the disposition of the magician is to acknowledge that. You don't see that too often in Solomonic magic, simply due to the construct of the conception of the cosmology, which is most of the spirits that the magician is conjuring, have them do something, they consider it as demons, or at least as beings below, the creator and the angel, and more earthbound, and more likely to try to take advantage or use the person, try to get them to do something that
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't readily do. So they're very
Wow.
cognizant about that. For the ceremonial magician, the invocation and the incense provided is kind of the offering for them, and the acknowledgement for them in order for them to do something. And then there's, for even the more powerful spirits, the kings and the beings that are quite definitely gods and goddesses in previous cultures and previous times. They request offerings of various things, but they're usually offerings of like fine wine and foods and things that they kind of got before. There's no mention of like blood offerings or things that would be highly suspect then or today as far as appropriateness. Although offerings, depending on the time period, as we go back, like animals and such, there could be, but most
Mm-hmm.
magicians these days, that's not something that's offered, they might be willing to, make something for them or give them, foods and beverage and, this type of thing and incense, but that's as far as it goes.
Mm. Oh. So, I have a question about I seen by doing my research that you use something called you use crystals and you use talisman.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that play into actually using magic? What do the is a skyer and talisman, correct?
Yeah, so they're kind of two
Two
different
different.
things. So
Okay.
within the practice of spirit communication, you can use an oculum type of crystal ball, a black obsidian mirror. Classically, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of variations of scrying things. There's even ancient manuscripts of scryers and seers being able to scry spirits on their thumbnail with a little bit of oil on it. But
Wow.
water jugs, water bowls, and basins, and crystals, basically anything that can hold the attention and be used as kind of a focal point, if not a doorway to be able to interact with the spirit. And in this case, is like I've written about in my second book. Um, this is where evocation was classically done, and it was usually done with a magus or an operator, somebody that would be standing there evoking the spirits with the litanies and the conjurations
Hmm.
and so on and so forth. And then you had a scryer that was sitting there and just completely passive, waiting to get impressions of the spirit or the angel, whoever. In ancient days, they would often use a child, and they figured that a child was the best because, they were able to be completely, innocent and passive, and I think the magus or the adult would be able to tell if, the child was just making things up or if they were really getting genuine information, because the child would start speaking unlike themselves, and most likely the child was not educated. So if they started speaking about things that were knowledgeable, it was a sure sign for the magician that, okay, yes, he's seeing the spirit and the angel, and this is verifiable. In today's age, it's definitely not something that people work with a child, but they'll find somebody that has these kind of aptitudes and gifts.
Hmm.
I was very lucky that I have a very good close friend that is an amazing, if not one of the best seers and scryers, and we work together very well. And The difference between the kind of talismans or what the magician might wear is, um, for the magician, they call them a lamen or a phylactery. And this would be a medal or a piece of parchment or something that they would wear that would show divine authority. It would be a seal. Sometimes it has the spirit's seal on it, but it would have pentagram or like the seal of Solomon, something on the reverse that would show ultimate authority when this spirit showed up, and also to keep the spirit in line and not, attack the magician or the scryer. And this is something that would be worn by them. Pinnacles or talismans are different, because there's something that the magician makes for a client, and they can give them to other people that can kind of have these powers or some of these properties from the spirits. But those people don't have to be magicians themselves. They don't have had to have come in contact with the spirit or have bound it or tell it to do something. But it contains some of the office and power within the metal itself from that spirit to function a particular way. And that's where some of this magical technology for working for other people came about. So they could have something that was quote unquote safe for them to wear and have with them, that could bring certain things into their lives without them having to deal more directly with the spirit in that way.
Wow. So speaking of those things, are there specific things that you make for people and that you can give to people for like protection, for different energies. Um, upon my research, I've seen you're a craftsman, so you do make different types of pieces for people. And how do you go about, also dual question, I'm sorry, how do you go about putting the energies into those things? Like, what are some of the steps?
Yeah, sure. So some of the most classical things that I make are the Pinnacles of Solomon from the Grimoire and the Key of Solomon, of which there's quite a few different variants and manuscripts and associated talismans and pinnacles that were actually included later. But the whole work with talismans as it got integrated into Solomonic magic was a little bit different, but used some of the same rules as where image magic came from other books of magic, and they're all basically classified under the 7 classical planets of Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. And each of these planets have attributes, offices, and things that are associated with and under that power, and spirits that are associated with each too. So basically, through the Solomonic method, you would contact one of these spirits that was associated with, classically like Venus, and the office for Venus, of course, about not only love, passion, sex, drawing people, but also about the arts and being seen favorably and being expressive, and also having people be drawn to your expression and appreciate your self-expression that way, and that type of beauty and artistry. So all those things attributing to Venus. So if making a pinnacle or a talisman for someone, at least in my field, or at least my perspective of how I make them and how these magicians make them, is first becoming familiar with the spirits associated with these pinnacles and under those planetary aspects. And then it becomes a stage of having all the correspondences together. So the metal for Venus is copper, and its day is on Friday, and there's also hours of all the different planets for each day of the week. So you can get an hour of Venus on the day of Venus and get the copper, and then you're engraving symbols and sigils and names and psalms that are all attributed to Venus. So it's kind of like mashing all of this kind of power and correspondences down to one physical item. And after that timing, and after you have this object, you place it on an altar that the technology has been kind of developed, that has kind of like a mandala that where it's consecrated, and you call the spirit into that area, asking it to imbue that physical item with its office, with its power, to achieve what it's supposed to do, such and such. So if it's about love, and if the person has it and they're meant to draw on people that they want into their life, then ask the spirit, could you do this? And the spirit, at least for my practice, the spirit is the one that makes it a working magical item, where before it's, it could be kind of a decoration or have some draw just because of its nature and the symbol and the time of day I made it, so on and so forth. It's got some of that, but the spirit really makes it this very powerful item. So all of those things together, for me at least, make the talisman.
Oh, wow. So if anyone is wanting to get one of those pieces, how do they go about doing so?
They can go through me directly, or I have excellent people helping me out that have brought some of my creations to and through their work, and adding to what they do as well. But I do have somebody that's in the final stages of developing a website for me. But so far, it's just been something that I've been doing through Facebook, through people that know me through there, or contact me through my blog, because this is never something that I wanted to do as a full-time job or make a whole bunch in stock, I usually just I have my other jobs that I do, but if somebody comes to me and saying, I would like this Pinnacle, I usually just make it when they ask, and I find the next available day and I plan it, and I make my orders then. But people can still contact me or find me through social means that way if they're looking for something.
Okay. Yeah. So anybody looking for any pieces made, or even someone to be, I can say mediator, right? As far as evoking spirits. Frater Ashton is a guy. He's on Facebook. Frater Ashton Chassen on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So guys wanna check him out. He's amazing. He got the stuff. Christian, I actually wanted to bring you in on those pinnacles. I know that you guys are working together, simultaneously creating these amazing pieces for people. How did that come about?
Well, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Well, it was a really kind of organic. I deal with customers in my hoodoo practice all the time, and so I was really looking for something that could kind of amp up the work and something that customers could have that they could, these are pinnacles, these are magical items that you can keep for years and years and years, and they can really just kind of bring you all sorts of good things. So to be able to find just like a magical device that's worked so good for me, I, looked around for someone who was, adept in creating them and who was highly respected. And I kind of purchased a couple for some customers that I work with, and they love
Hmm.
them so much. And it was just kind of like this really organic merge of just kind of collaborating on Pentacles and really like introducing them to the hoodoo community
Hmm.
because they work so well with hoodoo work and just all different types of magical systems under the ATR hoodoo spectrum. They just work really good with other practitioners who practice different types of magic, and then just they're good for customers just to receive those different lessons. So there was really there was no real conversation about it. It was just kind of like we just did it, and every week people buy them, and just getting the word out about how precious they are. Has been my main thing, and so yeah, that's how that came about, and excited about it.
Amazing. Oh, amazing, amazing. Two powerful divine entities coming together for amazing cause would definitely be profound to me. So
Right.
they can actually find those through you as well, Christian, through Hoodoo, Housewife Hoodoo.
Right, you can always. I'm really active on Instagram, but we have a Facebook page. You can, start a conversation with me, and we can figure out, which physical or magical device is right for you.
Do you have like anything tangible to show, like that we can see?
I, I do. Frater, did you send anything tonight, or did you have anything on you?
Oh, I always have things around. If you guys don't mind me standing up, I'm sure I could
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, sure, sure, sure. We would
let you
love to
duck out
see
and
it.
I'll see what I can find.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So Frater is going to go and grab some things, some pinnacles for us to see. I want to actually see how it looks. See how it's
Yeah.
worn,
I'm
the
wearing a
tangible thing.
couple.
Oh, you're wearing a couple. Cool. So there are different
I'm wearing a
colors.
couple.
Okay.
They're different metals, so they're made of different
Okay.
metals. This one
Okay.
is the second physical of Venus,
Okay.
which he was
So
briefly describing it in.
right,
Go
right.
ahead.
He briefly described. So what made you choose the Venus one?
Well, Venus just brings all good things to you, love, material goods, friendships, uh, gifts. So I always like to work within those ones. And they make people, it seems to have made people a lot sweet. It makes them a lot sweeter.
Awesome.
So I
Awesome.
always like to work with all the good things, all the good, pretty
Right.
things. We need
That is
more of. So,
awesome.
yeah.
So is the energy instantaneously? Is it instantaneous? Does it happen right away, or is it like something that you have to do? You have to do some work on your own, or you have to do something, some inner work to actually activate the energies of the pinnacles?
It's a great question, and I find that sometimes it's different. I've gotten feedback from clients that they were amazed because I put the pinnacle in the mail, and they noticed things starting before it even got to their possession. They're
Wow,
like, and I've heard that
Right.
a few times, and I always thought that was amazing.
that
Um,
is
Many
amazing.
times, when as soon as they picked it up, they felt something that day happened. Sometimes it's later. I've gotten so many variants, and even when I question the spirits and when I ask them to consecrate, a lot of times I would say the majority of the time they're like, yes, if it's near them, if it's on their person, or they have to keep it in their house, or they have to keep it so close to them. But every once in a while, they're saying they should at this time of day or on this day they should say a little prayer and face this way, and this will bring even more um, a benefit of what this pentacle is supposed to do. So there's some variation. It's really fascinating to hear the spirits and also from the clients the various feedback that they've gotten, and that's why I still do it is because of the feedback and the way that I've seen uh, this change people's lives. I've really had people going, my life was upside down, or this was going on. I thought I would never have this in my life. All of a sudden, this is
Right.
going on, and they're
Wow,
very grateful and
powerful.
say, thank you. But for me, I'm like, I make them for you, but it's not me. This is just seeing the spirits work and the magic work, and
Mhm.
I'm happy to be a part of it. But that's my part in it. But I brought a few things, and I actually haven't shipped this out. But this is a solar pinnacle, and this is actually unique onto
Oh
me. That's
wow.
without the reflection there.
Hmm.
But this is something special from my angelic work with my scryer, where we
Uh-huh.
work with Archangel Michael, and this is gold-filled metal. But
Wow.
we asked that if he had a specific symbol that represented him, that he could show us. And this is written in my book, but he showed us a huge lion's head, and when it opened its mouth, it was like the stars. It was like the universe, and then a six-pointed star appeared within. So a client asked for that, and then on the reverse, I put Mikhail's sigil. Actually, a couple of his sigils from. That's really reflective. Sorry, I know it's probably hard to
Hmm.
see. There we go.
Yeah, it is. That's how powerful it is. That is amazing.
Very
That is
shiny.
amazing. Oh man,
Um,
that is amazing.
but
So, oh man,
sorry, I
what
brought it.
what what color is that one?
So this one's actually made out of calfskin parchment. So some things in classical magic were made before they had paper. They had
Okay.
parchment, which is made out of animal skins, and it's consecrated, made a particular way. This is one of the Mars pentacles that's for protection and for physical protection, so that you're not able to be harmed by enemies and such. And this is on a Mars altar that I have. This is an example of another Mercury pentacle that I have from the veritable Key of Solomon, kind of lesser known, but um, there's things for learning, for travel, for communication, for protection, and I brought all kinds to show from.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, yes, yes. Oh
but
man.
yeah, I'm never too far from.
I definitely would be purchasing. I definitely would be purchasing some of those. Yes, I'm gonna purchase and I'm gonna do an episode about the energy that I received from. So stay tuned, people. We're gonna definitely get
Yeah.
some stuff from Frater and Housewife Hoodoo, and we're gonna definitely have an episode on it. So yeah. Oh man. So Frater, I wanted to talk about your book. So I know you wrote two books and three anthologies. How is that? How did that come about?
Well, the first book, Gateways Through Stone and Circle, started out as actually just a collection of notes and results that I only intended to actually share with a few other magicians that were in a group that we had formed and working from a particular kind of art of dealing with the planetary archangels called the art of drawing spirits into crystals. It's a pretty straightforward and probably one of the easiest, or at least the shortest methodologies on evocation of calling forth angels to speak with them. And a few magicians tried it, with kind of modified ways, and even magicians really developed kind of their own take on it. And I tried to do it as closely to what was written as possible. So I made some fairly complex instruments, a pedestal with a gold disc and a crystal in the middle with names around it to call the angels, and a tripod of incense, a magical circle, and ebony wand, all of these things. And I experimented. I tried to call the angels, and I got amazing results. And I was recording everything that I was doing and practicing, and I was compiling them, and I was really excited. But I'd never written anything beyond college papers, and I was only moderately successful at that. But I shared them with a couple of magicians. They're like, "This is amazing. You should publish this in the book." I'm like, "Well, I'm not a writer." And they said, "Yes, you are." and I work in, and one of them was a published author, and he put me in touch with his publisher, and went to compiling the book and got it edited, and I pretty much did a gamble and put it out there, and people really seemed to like it. And that was kind of how my first book came about, and it's pretty much just my take on the art, how I made everything in as much detail as possible, how I learned to scry, how the angels appeared to me, what they told me about themselves, and just my take on practicing the art from beginning to end. And this is how I did it, in case somebody wanted to try it for themselves. And that's kind of what the first book is about.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. And you received some amazing feedback from both books, correct?
It's been wonderful. It's really been a blessing, and it's neat to see. I think some of the greatest feedback is other people writing me going, I followed this and I did this and I've been working on it and I've had these results. I've been able to, be successful this way, and that's awesome to see for me, people that it's been useful for them as magicians as well.
Absolutely. So, for someone that's looking for a beginner's book, or something that's a little more tangible for them to actually look at, where can they find that?
If they're looking for books, I guess beginners books on magic and such. I mean, a lot of them can be found on Amazon. There's so many nowadays. I guess it depends what they're looking for. If they're looking for classical ceremonial magic, or if they're looking for hermetic magic, there's even some old classes just get a foundation. If they're I guess I should say, if they're interested in Solomonic magic, it is a bit of learning, but Dr. Stephen Skinner has some excellent books. They're pretty academic. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of knowledge. If somebody's looking to just really dive in, it might take a little bit of patience. But there's the techniques of Solomonic magic. There's the techniques of Greco-Egyptian magic, which kind of really gives some back story and tradition to the eventualities of Solomonic magic. But if they're really just looking to practice and to kind of get their feet wet in hermetic magic, there's still modern magic by Donald Craig and quite a few others that I grew up with even before I got into this. It's there's a lot of information. There's a lot of reading and tradition and background to all of this stuff that does require quite a bit of study and research and working through this. But those are kind of the first ones that come to mind.
Okay. And both of your books are on Amazon too, correct?
Yep, you can find both.
Okay. And that is The Gateways Through Stone and Circle. That's your first book. And then
Mm-hmm.
the second book is The Gateways Through um,
Light and shadow. Mm-hmm.
Light and Shadow. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. So you guys can find that on Amazon from Frater, Ashen, Chassen. And if you're beginner or even professional, he has some work for you guys, and you guys can look it up. And I am actually going to purchase the first book because I am most definitely interested in this. I'm the person that wants to dig into the esoterics and the unknown, so I like to deal with it. But I definitely know now a lot with your help. You have to definitely be disciplined and know what you're doing, know what you're getting into. So which brings me to like, what is like the biggest misconception that you heard or have throughout practicing magic?
I would say the biggest misconception that I see coming from people and dealing with them is that that magic's really supposed to match their imagination or their fantasy of what they visualize. And I think I've seen the proof of magic and how it works not as I'm expecting rather than as I'm expecting, and that there really comes nothing from nothing. That energy always has to be transferred from somewhere, something to another thing in order to get change, to get manifestation. Um, things evolve that way, and I see proof of that again. And then the misconception is, where people think it's kind of the genie in the bottle, and it's just a wish granted kind of
Yeah.
um, activity, and it's not. It does require work, and even some of the, I would say, simpler forms of spirit interaction or just magic in general, even sympathetic magic. It does take work and refinement and really um, being sensitive to actually how it's functioning rather than how you're imagining it to function or that you think it will function in the beginning. And that takes time and experience to actually to see it working and to be observant.
Okay, that's amazing. So, I wanted to go back a little bit on something that I actually read, and I thought this would be such a profound question to answer because I actually wanted to know what was the difference and also to compare and contrast these two. It was more on the difference between modern day Grimoire and I'm sorry, traditional Grimoire.
Hmm. That's a good question. I guess you can say that modern day grimoires or modern day grimoire magic basically suits the needs and the perspective of the magicians that are practicing in this day and age. They'll modify things and use more current either technology or understanding of what they realize about how these things work. Um, Most likely too, there's a different perspective of the cosmology. A lot of classical magic is definitely written within the framework and the paradigm of most of the time Catholicism on that time in Europe, and where these things were gaining most popularity. That was the world in which they knew, and so God, the angels, and demons, and that kind of hierarchy things were kind of perceived and understood a certain way, and that's how it worked. A lot of modern interpretations is definitely broadened or looked different, or it looks differently or approached differently, but it really does depend on the magician. There's a lot of still hardcore Catholic Christian magicians that do it, and it kind of matches a lot of the verbiage and structure that you see. And then there's magicians that do it a completely, totally different way, or almost take a lot of the religious components and such out of it completely. It's kind of a big topic, and for me, it's about what I've witnessed and what I've experienced as being successful. Um, and I've seen a lot of different claims, but I can only kind of claim what's worked for me. And personally, a lot of the hardcore religious things was very difficult for me because when I came into magic, when I got interested, Christianity was something that I abandoned completely. It didn't work for me, and I was angry with a lot of cultural and other things that didn't work with people who were interested in magic, or other cultures, or so on and so forth. So it was very difficult to go back to that and give it any respect at all. But for me personally, it was a journey that there's you can understand it differently, but there's powers in the names and the structures and the belief and the beings that or backed up were how the system was created. And I find the people that remove all of that, they miss some things, and what I've read of the results, at least in my perception, has not been as powerful or as rewarding. But it just depends. Modern magic, modern evocation in grimoire magic, there is all sorts of, all kinds of people saying and writing and claiming various things. It's a bit confusing, honestly, for me, purposely.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But even historically, the ancient grimoires, you had different minds and people saying and doing different things, different manuscripts, and changing and alterability. So it is there's no static belief system or practice. Even historically, the things were always changing. So.
Oh, wow. So I have a question, and this is for the audience. I know they're all wanting to know, what does an actual spirit looks like? Like, what are I guess it wouldn't be physical because it's a spirit, so there's an oxymoron. But what does a spirit looks like? Like, what are the features of it? How does it look?
They can look like all sorts of things, and they can look different ways to different people. One of my old magical students and such, when he was starting to become successful with angelic magic, he would see them in these very complex geometric kind of sacred geometry, bright patterns and images, and not necessarily anthropomorphic. The image of the spirits actually is kind of an interesting topic, because if you look in the ancient grimoires, and part of those invocations and the instructions is that you need to appear to me in human shape and human form, and something that's not terrifying. But there's even parts in the grimoire like, oh, the spirit, if you don't ask it, it's going to appear as a shirt, or it's going to appear as some object. And it sounds interesting or almost comical, but we're not used to speaking to a shirt and getting a reply that's confusing for the human brain. So part of the invocation is to have these spirits appear to us in human form, because that's what we're used to holding conversations with. But even so, sometimes they can appear with like the goetic spirits, but angelic spirits as well, with sometimes animal features, animal heads, animal tails, or part of their body, or with animals. And all of this is information, is actually part of the communication. It's not just there because it's interesting. When a spirit appears with a lion head and has wings of yellow fire, this kind of thing, a magician should understand that as communication, and this is having some solar possible correlations, or it's about strength, and so on and so forth. There's everything through symbol and correspondence. So just like you say, spirits aren't physical. They don't have to look like anything, but when we're able to perceive them, and our filters, if they're working, the way that we perceive them is part of their communication. They're letting us know what they're about. It's kind of their visual identity and representation of what they're trying to convey about themselves to us. So they appear as all types of things, sometimes amazing and sometimes kind of bizarre. And it's what they're doing, what their energy is doing, and also what our minds are able to actually conceive and understand of what we're looking at. And that can be a difficult process, honestly. And even people who think they would like to see spirits and encounter these spirits, a difficult process and experience for the human mind to handle in most cases.
Wow. So, wow, that's that's interesting. So, I have a dual question. What are there different languages that the spirit speaks in? And if there are, like, how do you interpret what type of language, or how do you even communicate if it is a different language?
Yeah. So again, excellent question, and ones that the magicians thought of as well. So besides declaring, you need to appear in a human form and appear non-frightening. You must speak to me in a voice intelligible and onto my understanding is also included in the invocations and the kind of document. Because if they started coming up and speaking language you wouldn't understand, it would be no good. So they do speak. Hopefully, if you compel them to speak in the language that you understand. But as far as I know, they're capable to convey in several languages. But there is, especially for some of these beings, a high emphasis on the importance and the power behind Hebrew, sometimes behind some of these Latin type words. And as a matter of magical interest, one of the most famous records that we have for a magician and scryer partnership is a man named John Dee and Edward Kelly. John Dee was the court magician, astrologer, and sometimes spy to Queen Elizabeth I. Very intelligent man. Edward Kelly was a scryer, and through their workings, they were instructed and were basically given by these beings that they were contacted a complete language, alphabet, syntax, verbiage, and language of they call it the angelic language. It's known as Enochian. Some people say Enochian, but this is the source of where we get those letters and that angelic language is from their efforts and devising and being taught by the angels the whole language, and with its own letters and such. So quite some interesting magical history there.
Yeah, that is. So, Frater, what are some telltale signs that an actual spirit is around?
Excellent. I've gotten this question a few times, and I can say the telltale signs is when you will have no question, and for us, all of the angelic experiences with my scryer and I, when we do the call, I had them recorded, and you can hear both of us gasp at the same time, because all of a sudden the room lit up as if a sun just entered, and it's kind of pushes back, and all the hairs rose up, and there was no doubt that there is something extremely powerful within the room. And then, of course, when you actually see something in the crystal or in the scrying things, and it's as clear as day. I mean, you don't have to guess or have to wonder or use your imagination. I mean, it's there, but we've done evocation and sparks of light just kind of flashing through the air, or a weird sense of things kind of moving around or being scuffled all around, but you can't quite see anything. There's a lot of really interesting phenomenon that when these things happen dynamically anyways, there's no question it's ridiculously powerful. Sometimes it is subtle, and sometimes it takes, I think, people kind of having to ease into this, and you have to be open and perceptive, but look in the changes of the atmosphere, the change in the light, smells, this can accompany different smells, but a presence. A lot of people that are drawn to this art, they'll feel when something is around right in the center of their chest, and it's hard to put words to, but it's also undeniable because something's not there, and then all of a sudden it's there, and you have this feeling, and you have to go with it. But
or like bruises and stuff. Does that happen often? Like people end up with like different type of things or patterns on their skin or bruises or something?
those kind of things, I would say, happen when a person does not have adequate barriers and protection. Yeah, if you're getting marks on your body and things like that, that's when the spirit's a little bit too close. Magicians do things within a magical circle, and even though it's it's a holy barrier, and even though you're still very impacted by the experiences, and the presence of the spirit is still there, they're not supposed to basically touch you or affect you in any kind of way at all. So if that happens, something went seriously wrong in your magical experiment, or you were really trying to go crazy, and you're like, I don't need any of this protection stuff, so let's just see what happens, and that might be a cause. But yeah, luckily that hasn't happened for me or my scryer.
Wow. So and we're gonna wrap it up, but I have a couple more questions. What does the spirit do if they want to actually contact someone in the physical form? Like, do they hound them? Do they set up signs, or do they petition someone as powerful as you to actually convey that message to that person?
Oh, a spirit, contacting. Spirits can contact people several different ways, and this is all documented even in the grimoires and such too. They can contact them through dreams, is very kind of a classical way that they can speak to people. Even for myself, I had an interesting experience where I was readying for a client wanted me to evoke one of these beings of the Goetia that I'd contacted years ago, but it was early on, and it's like I didn't count it as much because I wasn't getting the experiences that I'm having now. But it was the night before, and I actually was going through the process in my head as I fell asleep, and the spirit appeared, and I had a whole working with them while I was asleep, just like almost as if I was doing it in my magical chamber, and that was interesting. But even before that, spirits can contact people in their sleep. They can show them signs. They can, if the person's perceptive in some ways, sometimes they can hear them, or they can feel them, or show them basically oracles of various sorts. So I find spirit contact for people. There's several different examples.
Is it like number patterns or sequences as well, like numbers? I hear that one often. Is that cliche, or is it just
it happens a lot. Both my wife and my good friend that's helping me with my website, they see 444s all the time, and seeing a lot of triple numbers and things like that. So yeah, things like that are ways of contacting and communicating, and sometimes it can be difficult because you don't know exactly what it means or who's making the contact, and that's where it gets confusing, because unless you can speak to that being kind of one-on-one and really ask and find out, it's there's a little bit of guesswork, but that's been since the beginning of time with this kind of stuff, and it depends on the person's development, perception, and what they're able to gather as information from how the spirit's trying to reach them. So there's different ways for sure.
Wow. Oh wow. What type of spirits do you work with? Is it good entities? Is it bad entities? Or is it just all angelic? Or do you have like a type of religion you associate with and you only associate with? Or is it, all over the place and upon clients, of course, requests?
Yeah, I work and have worked with quite a number of beings, and have had some fascinating encounters. When I was younger, just a lot of interesting land spirits, and then I was very much into the Celtic kind of Druidic pagan path for a while, and actually had some very profound experiences with some of the pantheon and the deities and gods and goddesses there. But even in classical magic, angels and archangels definitely have been some of the most impactful and ones that I continue to work with. But I've worked with a lot of goetic beings, and a lot of people attribute them to demons. They're listed as demons in some books of magic, but my encounters with them is that the ones that I've worked with so far are definitely deities from past cultures, gods and goddesses, spirits that have developed in quite a bit of authority and awareness, but over certain aspects of existence in human interaction, and they're very conscious in their particular field of who they are and what they do. And you have to be careful with them because they have their own agendas. They have their own way of doing what they do and who they are, and the way that they relate to people and they work with people. And some of the biggest mistakes is, again, people's imaginations. They think, oh, I'm nice to this spirit, or I'm nice to this god, and as long as I'm nice, they're going to be nice back, because that's what people do. But they're not people. They've never been people, and the way that they see morality and ethics and how things should be in the universe is different than what people do, most people. And that's where the mistakes happen a lot of times. And it's not that they're evil and out to get you, it's just that their interest is not the same as your interest, and if you make too many assumptions, you're going to run into trouble. So I work with all kinds of beings, but I try to be careful in any kind of assumptions or imaginings, or what I think they're going to be like, or what I think they're going to do for me, or how they're going to respond. But I work with all kinds of beings, and I do types of Asian magic and some work with some beings on that end. So I'm not too restricted in who I work with, but I am also selective of who I choose to work with and who I choose to, kind of form those connections with.
Okay. So you do have to go through a process of whether or not this person is good to work with, or the spirit they're requesting is a good spirit to work with.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. So, just for the listeners, what do you have coming up, or do you have anything in major? Do you do tours? Do you actually have a specific time of the year where you actually do magic work, or is it just upon request, and of course your option of elimination, whether or not you want to? But how does that come about?
Yeah, it's in the magical world, it's ongoing. Before the COVID thing, I had the pleasure of doing magical workshops and lectures. I was going to England to teach magic for a couple times in the year, and spend some time over there. I've had magical workshops where I live locally in various parts of the States. And that's been nice. But since then, I have 3 online Facebook magical workshop groups that are ongoing, that I started a while ago, that people join on kind of a semi-regular basis, and where people share, and I share specific information for people who sign up and really want to learn these arts the way that I do them and the way I've experienced them. So I really share some close and special information on how to do that for people who are serious about learning some of this stuff. And I have 3 of those so far, since I can't do in-person ones right now. But it's ongoing. I have clients that hire me to evoke spirits on their behalf, and I take it on a case-by-case basis. There's a lot that I turn down because I don't think it's appropriate, or I don't think they're going to get what they want out of it, or so on and so forth. But there's enough that come through that I do those workings. The Pinnacles, but I also make wands and crystals and all sorts of magical implements and investments and tools for people who are serious about the stuff like I am, and they like how I make my tools. And locally, I every once in a while, if there's a hunting or some sort of paranormal thing, I'm part of a paranormal team that will go and do investigations. And a lot of times it's nothing, but on the off chance there's something that requires my attention, it's got to be pretty weird. But I'm on that team. But I'm also in major holy orders as a deacon in the Apostolic Johannite Church, which is a Gnostic church that serves quite seriously and offers mass every Sunday. And when I can, it's I drive up to that church. It's about an hour north of here, and I try to make it when I can to serve the people and work in the church there. And that's a big part that I picked up actually after working with the angels and became inspired to do for their service. So that's kind of a large part of what I do as well.
Wow. You are a well-accomplished man. Sounds like you're very busy too. Very busy.
Yeah.
Christian, is there anything that you have coming up with Housewife Hoodoo, or you want to, put out?
Yes, we have some new, not necessarily new, but just presenting some new Pinnacle options here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm just telling everyone to look out for that. So just some new magical devices coming up that I'm excited about.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, this was such amazing. So, oh my God, I learned a lot from you, Frater, and oh man, this was profound. I actually want to indulge in this and actually learn more about it. Just that gain more knowledge on this. This is,
Right.
man, this was amazing. I really thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for teaching us and, just basically breaking down all the misconceptions and all the questions that people possibly could have. I tried to ask everything, so I hope I asked the right questions for my viewers.
They're great questions, and I appreciate you and Christian coming to me and being able to share and collaborate. It's really nice to see, even across different traditions and different magical paths, the interest and the shared things, and you guys actually taking time to talk to me and share that way. I was really happy, kind of finding out how that was working and seeing how my work even extended to other people and such. It makes everything worth it. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Nice to have
Thank you guys for coming. Quick thing, we are revamping on the Over 30 podcast. So possibly after this week, we will not be the Over 30 podcast anymore. We're transitioning, and we going into a different just a whole lot of different things that's about to take place. It's a new year, so we have to come revamp. We're going to talk about the taboo, the pseudosciences, and the esoterics, and introduce it to our demographic. We had Christian on last week. Thank you, Christian, for joining us again. And now we have Frater introducing us. We're just revamping, and this is the things that we're going to go to. So, look out for the new Over 30 podcast. And we thank you guys so much again for actually being on our show. And hopefully you guys will be back and with my co-host, and we can dig in deeper on some stuff. So, all right.
That was great.
We out.